All right, gang, this is MATH6996 video number 7. This video is on reviewing the literature, and I'm going to tell you that the toughest part, well, there's two tough parts to research. One of the parts that's usually very difficult for people is finding a topic. And I say usually difficult because sometimes you're driving down the road, or you wake up in the middle of the night, you have one of those aha moments, and it just comes to you. And I've had that happen before. But my first bits of research, that wasn't the way it happened. I would seemed like endless nights and lots of time looking at the literature and doing different things, trying to come up with a topic. So you might get lucky there, or you may be like me in the early stages and drive yourself insane trying to find a topic. Nevertheless, irrelevant of how that goes, the biggest pain in research for me is reviewing the literature. Now, I'm going to approach this video. I had a video that probably would have been about an hour long because this is such an important topic. But I didn't want you guys going to sleep on me and getting bored with it. So guys, hang with me. I'm going to make this as quickly as possible. I'm going to try to cover the main points. Guys, this is extremely important that you understand the importance of reviewing the literature and the process. Now, the first thing, the role of literature. There's really two things that we need to do here. When I did some research on placement testing, which was some of my first research, maybe like the second or third, well, about the third, I guess. Research allowed me to get into the field and obviously see what had been done, but I also came away from the lit review with a lot of names, and I called those key players in the field of placement. And once you establish the key players in the field of placement, that's very helpful because you can look at their work, and then you can look at the people they've cited, they've trusted enough in their field to cite in their research. So again, look at the key players and look at who the key players trust in their research. The second thing it does is it just places your research in its proper perspective, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But I think the role of literature in my let's put it this way, the role of literature as it relates to me producing credible research. One of the most important things to me was early on was finding out the key players in the topic. The third thing, the literature review is going to help you clarify the goals of your study. And number 4, it's going to help you identify methodologies that have been proven to be useful. Something like that. This factor analysis that we dealt with in your 6600 class. There are a lot of studies in psychology that have wanted to tap into these intrinsic characteristics, and to be able to do so, they've needed to try to assess that through multiple questions, multiple survey items. And a way that they can summarize that would be factor analysis. So, and again, the methodologies that will be acceptable or proven useful in your field obviously depends on the field you choose. Number 5, this is a very important one that it avoids unintentional replication of previous studies. I think I told you previously, in a previous video that is, about the guy at the University of Kentucky that did his research. Didn't do number 5, this very well, and he ended up at probably I don't even know how much, but he was a significant way through his research, almost nearing the end, and he found out that he couldn't do it because couldn't finish because someone else had done the research. I was really I think I would have given up. He actually handled it much better than me, and just got another topic and spent a couple of years longer in grad school, and he did ultimately successfully defend and get his PhD. Number 6, by studying related literature in the field, the researcher is in a better position to understand the significance of their results, and that should be really clear. Guys, something I want you to put on your radar. It's called the Educational Resources Information Center. We call it ERIC. ERIC was a lifesaver to me in some of my early research. It indexes and abstracts more education-related sources than any other database. Covers about 800 journals. I had to look this up. It's not like I walk around knowing some of this stuff. And more than 1 million documents. So I gave you the website there. It's a .edu/gov site. So you find a lot of those out there. Guys, most of this stuff is only in electronic form, but it's my understanding that most of it can be printed. Guys, using ERIC, some hints. This is nothing that I went to a book and got. This is just telling you things that I've run into. Determine keywords that are applicable to your study. What population are you looking at? Are you looking at, adolescent math students? Are you looking at first generation college students? And look at the variables. Are you looking at achievement scores? Are you looking at socioeconomic status? Look at the way that think about the way the variables are presented and enter those in ERIC appropriately. Guys, be creative. I forgot what I got into one time. It was, though I don't remember, but it was something like, and this wasn't it, but say I typed in math education, and I didn't really get anything. And again, this was not it. It wasn't math education, but it was something else, like 2 words. And I typed it in, and I didn't really get much. But if I changed it to like the education of mathematics, and again, this was not the example. This is not what happened. I'm just using this as an example. I'll pull it out of the air real quickly. I got some really cool stuff. And this just happened to me probably 3 or 4 months ago. Guys, get organized. This is when I did my dissertation, the research for my dissertation. This was an epic fail for me. I worked hard. I spent a lot of time researching. I looked at hundreds, I read hundreds of articles, but I didn't get organized. So right off the bat, get organized, take notes, and follow some of these hints that I'm giving you. Number 4, always read the abstract first. All research will have an abstract, and it's usually a few hundred words that summarizes the research. You don't want to spend a lot of time looking at stuff that at journals, reading journals that aren't applicable to your research. So read the abstracts first. In ERIC, a prefix of ED says you can download the entire document. A prefix of EJ, you're going to have to do more legwork. Guys, don't be afraid to ask your library for help. The people at Shawnee State are very helpful. They're open on Saturdays and Sundays. So when this thing gets full blown, there's a possibility that you may have to come to the library and request a meeting with someone to help you find what you need. Research is a lot of work. It really is. If you're someone that doesn't like to get out and get involved, you're probably going to hate this. But we'll get through it. Okay. Whoa. Let me go back. Other sources, government sources are really good. I've given you 2 there. National Center for Education Statistics. I've worked with those guys a lot, only because my doctoral advisor was one of the key figures with that group. Dissertations and theses. If you go to any university that is a PhD granting university, for example, you can go to the W.T. Young Library at the University of Kentucky. I'm sure there's, I don't know the library name at Ohio State or OU, but all dissertations and theses are on file. So those are a great source for lit review. Guys, the World Wide Web, you guys have no idea how lucky you are to be beginning research today when all the stuff that is out there at your fingertips. There's no more thumbing through these index cards and stuff like I had to do. And even, I did my first research in the early 2001, and things have even changed over the last 12, 13 years. JSTOR is another, Google Scholar, WorldCat. Google those sometimes, and you'll see that those are pretty good sources for information for lit review. Guys, get organized. I can't stress this enough, and I'm gonna repeat this, and I think it's worth repeating simply because it made my life miserable. When you do your research, you're going to conduct your research. You're going to have 4 chapters. The first chapter is going to be setting up the problem, motivating the problem. Why is it worth studying? Stating your hypotheses and so on and so forth. The second chapter is your lit review. The third chapter is your methodology and your statistical results, and your fourth chapter will be your summary. The chapter number 2, the lit review, is again, at least for me, it was the hardest one, and everyone I talk to, it's typically the hardest. So, guys, just a little. I'm not going to talk through all these, or maybe I will. I don't know. Read the most recent studies and work backwards. Again, read the abstract first. Take notes and cite what you write down. There may be a quote, there may be a summary, there may be whatever. Make sure you cite where you get that. I ran into a couple of times where I was fairly organized in the end, but I had a couple of studies that I wanted to report in my summary, and I forgot to write down the reference. So I remember going to the library one day, spending 3-4 hours just trying to find the articles that I found this information in. And guys, always skim through the references. I touched on this earlier. When you tap into the frontiers or the key players in your field, whatever you may be studying, even beyond that, even if you're just looking at a journal article, always go to the end of it and look at the references. Skim through the references and look at the titles of the research that the person writing that journal article has cited. I found some of my best stuff that way, just by looking at the references of journal articles that I was looking for or looking through. Well, guys, I promised you I was going to keep that short because this is it's boring stuff. But it is so important that you're able to carry out a thorough lit review when we actually start working on the final presentation, on the final product here. So, guys, that's all I got. Have a good one.